The $1 million bank notification hit my daughter's phone at exactly 9:04 a.m. By 9:07 she was calling me for the first time in weeks. By 10 o'clock I had over a dozen missed calls and messages. And just like that I became important again. Not because I was in trouble. Not because they remembered my birthday. But because I bought a villa and didn't tell anyone. Let's rewind. 3 days ago I turned 65. Same date every year, September 3rd. But once again no one remembered. Not my daughter Lily. Not her husband Greg. Not even a simple text from my grandson. They were too busy in Sonoma, enjoying their annual wine weekend. It just so happened to fall on Greg's mother's birthday. Again, like it always does. Every year I'd hint. A text with cake emojis. A photo of my garden with "can't wait to celebrate here" captions. Sometimes I even offered to cook dinner on my own birthday just to have company. This year I said nothing. No reminders. No hints. I smiled and waved as they drove away on Friday morning. Suitcases in the trunk and smiles on their faces. Enjoy the weekend, I said, coffee in hand. The moment their car disappeared, I walked back inside, opened my laptop and called Clara, my real estate agent. Clara, I said, find me a place near the coast. I want something with a view, privacy, and no shared walls. And I want to see it today. She paused. Serious or dreaming? Serious. Show me what you've got. By noon we were touring a villa outside Monterey. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A chef's kitchen I didn't need but wanted anyway. 3 bedrooms, marble bathrooms, a walk-in closet that echoed. The backyard opened onto a private deck, and beyond that, the ocean. It's $1 million, Clara said cautiously. I'll take it. You don't want to think about it? I already have. She blinked. Would you like to discuss it with your? No. She didn't press further. By Saturday morning, the deed was in my name. By Sunday night, I was posting sunset photos on social media with the caption, "Some gifts you give yourself." I hadn't posted in months, maybe longer, but I still remembered my passwords, and I knew who would see the update first. Lily had set up alerts on my accounts, just in case something happens. That's how she put it. She became a joint account holder after my husband passed away. For safety, she said. She said she didn't want me to fall for scams or make impulsive decisions. I didn't argue. Not then. But I never forgot. So when the $1 million wire transfer went through, I knew she'd be notified. Sure enough, at 9:04 a.m. Monday, the alert hit her phone. At 9:07 my phone buzzed. I let it ring. By 9:15 Greg called. Then Lily again. Then her mother-in-law Susan, who never once had called me before. By lunchtime I had 14 missed calls and a dozen messages. Some were worded like concern. Mom, are you okay? Please call me. Others were disguised as logic. We just want to make sure everything's all right. My favorite was from Susan. I heard about the villa. Sounds sudden. Are you sure this is the right time? The right time? I had waited for years. But they didn't know that. They didn't know that I wasn't spending my savings. They didn't know about Uncle Walter. Last year my uncle passed away quietly in Santa Barbara. A man everyone forgot about except me. I visited him every month. We had tea, listened to music, talked about life. He never married. Never had kids. But he had a beautiful mind and a portfolio to match. He left everything to me. $8 million after taxes. His note said, "You were the only one who ever showed up." For nearly a year I kept it quiet. I watched how my family treated me when they believed I had nothing but memories. They forgot birthdays. They skipped holidays. They canceled lunch plans at the last minute. But when the money moved, they remembered I existed. That Monday I sat on the deck of my new home, drinking coffee with cream, legs tucked beneath a warm throw blanket. My phone vibrated again. Lily. Call number 6. I turned the phone off. And I smiled. They would be arriving soon, demanding answers, explanations, probably even apologies. But I had nothing to explain. By Tuesday afternoon, they'd moved from polite concern to full-on alarm. 17 missed calls. 8 voicemails. Even a message from Lily's friend Melissa, whom I hadn't seen since Lily's baby shower 15 years ago. "Hey, Just checking in. Lily's worried about you. Worried. That word kept showing up. But they weren't worried when I was sitting alone on my birthday year after year. They weren't worried when I cleared their dishes, watched their kids, or loaned them money for the down payment on their house. They were only worried now because I made a move without them. And not just any move, a big one. They knew nothing about Uncle Walter's estate. When he died, they sent flowers. That was it. No call. No visit. No, how are you holding up? They barely remembered who he was. The quiet uncle with the bird clocks, Lily used to say. He wasn't quiet with me. He was thoughtful, sharp, and very aware of how I was being treated. You give and give, he once told me, but they never looked back. He left it all to me because I looked back. And now I was looking forward for the first time in decades. That afternoon I went to my old house, the one Lily insisted I should keep just in case. I'd packed 2 boxes the night before. Photo albums, my favorite mug, a few pieces of jewelry, and a quilt my mother had made. Everything else could stay. I left a note for the realtor. List it by the end of the week. Price it to move. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and drove back to my new home with the windows down. The ocean air was warm and clean, like a reset. By the time I arrived, my phone had 24 new messages. I didn't check them. Instead, I poured a glass of iced tea, walked to the deck, and opened my journal. They only called because they saw the alert, I wrote. Not because they remembered my birthday. Not because they missed me. Only because they were afraid of what I did without them. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I didn't need revenge. What I needed was to live a life where I didn't have to beg for attention. That night, I grilled vegetables on my new deck. I played jazz on the outdoor speakers. I watched the sun drop behind the water. It was the first birthday celebration I'd had in years, and I was the only guest. And you know what? It was enough. The next morning they came knocking. I heard the tires crunch on gravel before I saw the car. Lily stepped out first. Then Greg. No smiles. No small talk. Just 2 people who drove 3 hours without calling ahead, expecting answers. I opened the door slowly. Hi, Mom, Lily said. We were worried. I said nothing. Greg gave a tight smile. We thought it might be good to talk. About this, Lily gestured vaguely. Everything. I stepped aside. They walked in like strangers, unsure where to stand, what to say. Lily looked around. This place is beautiful. It is. How long have you had it? She asked. 3 days. Greg cleared his throat. You didn't mention anything. I know. Why didn't you tell us? Lily asked, her voice sharp. I sat on the arm of the sofa. When was the last time you called me? She blinked. What? Not for help. Not for babysitting. Not to ask for a favor. Just to talk. She didn't answer. Greg stepped in. This isn't about calls, it's about the money. You moved over $3 million in one day. We thought something was wrong. I tilted my head. Wrong with what? With you. They wanted me to say I made a mistake. That I acted on impulse. That I wasn't thinking clearly. But I had never thought more clearly in my life. I made a purchase, I said. With money that is mine. I didn't need permission. But you should have talked to us, Lily said. We're family. Family that forgot my birthday for the last 6 years? Her face fell. I sat alone every September 3rd while you were off celebrating Susan's birthday with vineyard tours and catered dinners. That wasn't intentional, Lily said quickly. It never is. That's the point. Greg tried again. Look, this house, it's expensive. The taxes alone. Already budgeted. But how? I stood up. I know you both think I'm fragile. That I need oversight. But I've managed just fine. They were silent. Uncle Walter passed away, I added. Last fall. Oh, Lily said. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't ask. She shifted. So this villa. It's from an inheritance? Yes. He left everything to me. But you didn't tell us. I didn't need to. Greg exhaled sharply. This is a lot, okay? It just seems sudden. It's not. You just didn't notice the build-up. They looked at each other. The panic was turning into realization. I poured a glass of water, took a sip, then looked at them calmly. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done waiting. That's all. Lily opened her mouth, then closed it. We'll give you some space, she said finally. Greg nodded. Let us know if you need anything. I will. The next morning, I received an email from Lily. Subject line: Let's talk. No greeting. No warmth. Just a block of text. We want to make sure you're not being taken advantage of. This new purchase, the sudden move. It's not like you. We're just trying to protect you. Please let us help. I read it 3 times. Not because I was confused, but because I wanted to understand how far she'd gone in her mind to make my independence look like a crisis. Not like me. What did that even mean? Was me the woman who waited quietly to be remembered? The woman who offered to cook her own birthday dinner? The woman who watched their dog for a week while they went to Paris and never even got a postcard? That version of me was gone. And apparently that scared them more than anything. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Clara. Can we schedule a design consult for the garden area? I asked. I want to start building something. Raised beds, citrus trees, maybe a little gazebo. She sounded excited. Absolutely. I'll send over a team this week. After the call, I sat at my kitchen island, granite, smooth, sun-warmed, and opened my notebook. They think the money changed me, I wrote. But really, it just revealed what they always expected me to be. Small, dependent, manageable. Now I'm none of those things. At noon the doorbell rang. Not Lily this time. It was Susan, Greg's mother. Perfect hair, matching scarf and shoes, a too sweet smile that had never reached her eyes. I was in the area, she said. Thought I'd stop by. The area? Monterey was 2.5 hours from her house. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. I heard you've had quite a week, she said, peering past me into the entryway. I have. Lovely space. It is. She finally looked at me directly. Margaret, we're all a little concerned. There it was again. That word. I'm fine, Susan. Well, I'm sure you believe that. But let's be honest, this is a major shift. It would be irresponsible not to ask questions. I didn't realize I was under review. She ignored that. Lily tells me you've come into some funds. From a relative? I said nothing. I just want to make sure you're thinking clearly. These kinds of sudden changes can be emotional. We'd hate for you to be taken advantage of. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so she could no longer look into the house. I'm not being taken advantage of. She kept smiling, but her tone tightened. There are laws that protect people from manipulation, you know, especially at your stage of life. And there are laws that protect privacy. We stood in silence. I could hear waves in the distance. A bird chirped in the nearby trees. The world was calm, but Susan's energy was anything but. Lily just wants to make sure she's part of the conversation, Susan added. She was part of every conversation that benefited her, not the ones that mattered to me. Susan opened her mouth to respond, then shut it. She nodded tightly. Well, I hope this doesn't mean you're cutting yourself off from your family. I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm stepping out of a role I never applied for. She left after that. No goodbye hug. No forced kiss on the cheek. I stood on the porch until her car disappeared. Then I walked back inside, poured myself a glass of lemonade and sat on the deck, letting the sun hit my face. That evening I called my financial advisor. Not the one Lily recommended years ago, the one who copied her on all emails, just to keep her in the loop. A new one. I want to make some changes, I said. Of course, she replied. Let's go over what you have. We spent an hour reviewing my accounts, my new property, the leftover balance from Uncle Walter's estate. I had more than enough. Enough to live. Enough to travel. Enough to build something new. At the end of the call, she asked, do you want to include your family in any of the decisions? I smiled. I think they've made it clear they're only interested when it benefits them. That happens more than you'd think. I'm sure. Before bed, I checked my messages again. 2 more from Lily. 1 from Greg. All unacknowledged. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was trying to stop hurting myself. The next day, Clara's design team arrived. We walked the property. I showed them where I wanted citrus trees. where the raised beds would go, where the bench should be placed for the best sunset view. They listened. They took notes. They made suggestions. No judgment. No condescension. Just collaboration. Felt good. Like I was finally building something for me. After they left, I sat in the garden alone for a while, picturing what it would look like in 6 months. Lavender by the fence. Tomatoes climbing the trellis. A small fountain bubbling quietly. I wasn't building a retreat. I was planting proof that I was still here. Still capable. Still mine. Later that evening I received a package. No return address. Inside, a framed photo of my grandson Ben. A drawing he'd made years ago of me holding his hand. A note, written in Lily's handwriting. "We're sorry we forgot your birthday. Ben wanted you to have this." I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to believe it was sincere. But I knew. It wasn't about my birthday. It was about the villa. About what I had and what they didn't control. Still, I placed the photo on a shelf by the window. Not because I forgave. Not because I forgot. Because the love I gave was still real. Even if theirs wasn't. That night, I wrote one sentence in my journal. Let them panic. I'm not moving back. Saturday morning, 7:42 a.m. The doorbell rang again. Not Susan this time. Not a delivery. It was Lily. Alone. Hair pulled back, no makeup, sweatshirt and jeans. She looked like she hadn't slept. I opened the door but didn't speak. She took a breath. "Can we talk?" I nodded once and stepped aside. She didn't move to sit. Just stood in the center of the room, arms crossed like she was holding something in. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "All right. I don't understand what's happening." I sat down on the edge of the couch. "Then I'll explain." She looked surprised. Like she expected me to say I was confused or tired or just emotional. But I wasn't any of those things. "You stopped seeing me a long time ago, Lily," I said. "And I let it happen." Her mouth opened. "That's not fair." "It is fair. And it's true. You celebrated Greg's mother every year like she was the queen of spring. And you forgot me. Every year. That wasn't on purpose. That's what people say when they don't want to take responsibility." She looked down. "You wanted me quiet. Supportive. Available. Helpful. But never central. I didn't know you felt that way. You didn't ask." She walked to the window and looked out. "Mom, this house, the money. I didn't even know Uncle Walter was still in touch." "He was. Because I called. I visited. I showed up." She nodded slowly. "You know we're not after your money, right?" I raised an eyebrow. She shifted. "I mean, not just the money. That told me everything." I stood up. "Lily, I spent decades giving and asking for nothing. I stayed small so you could feel big. I stayed quiet so you didn't feel guilty. But now I'm doing what I want. And that scares you." She turned around, eyes full of something that wasn't quite tears. "It scares me because I don't know who this version of you is. She's always been here. You just didn't notice." Silence. She finally sat down. "What happens now? You stop trying to manage me. And if I can't, then you'll keep losing pieces of me." That landed. I could see it. She wasn't used to this version of me. Clear. Direct. Calm. She'd known the version who covered for people, softened the truth, swallowed the insult. But that version had packed up and moved to Monterey. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Did it really hurt that much? That we forgot your birthday?" I looked at her. "Yes." She blinked. "For years I told myself it didn't matter," I said. "But it did. Still does. Not because I wanted a party, but because I wanted to matter." She wiped the corner of her eye. "You do matter. Not to your calendar." That stung her and I meant it to. Sometimes the only way to cut through decades of habit is with a sharp truth. She stood. "I'm sorry. I know." She hesitated. Can I bring Ben to visit sometime? He misses you." I nodded. "I'd like that." She walked toward the door. Then stopped and turned. "Are you really okay?" "I'm more than okay." She gave a small tired smile. "That's what scares me." And then she left. I spent the rest of the day planting lavender with the landscapers. By evening, the air smelled like spring, even though it was October. I made tea, sat on the deck, and watched the stars come out one by one. Not a call. Not a noise. Just peace. The next morning, I made a list. Things I'd put off for years. Visit Italy in the spring. Learn to make sourdough from scratch. Paint something. Anything. Host a dinner. For my friends. Try kayaking. At least once. It wasn't about the money. It was about time. How little of it I'd use for myself. Now I had the freedom to say yes to things I'd always postponed. That evening, I got a call from my financial advisor. The portfolio's doing well, she said. And I wanted to ask, would you like to start a charitable foundation? You mentioned wanting to give back. I smiled. Yes, but I want it small, quiet, direct. What cause? Loneliness, I said. Support for people who've been left out. She paused. I love that. We discussed some details. By the time we hung up, I already had the name. The Second Chapter Fund. By the following Friday, the first donation from the Second Chapter Fund had already been processed. 3 new reading chairs delivered to the local senior center. 10 tablets with video call apps pre-installed. And 1 week's worth of freshly prepared meals for residents without family nearby. The director called to thank me. Her voice cracked halfway through. No one ever asks for this, she said. They just send money. You asked what we needed. I told her it was personal. Because it was. For years, I'd felt the kind of silence that sits in a room even when people are talking. I knew what it meant to be surrounded by voices and still feel invisible. Now I was doing something about it. On Sunday morning, I had my first real guest at the villa. No, not Lily. Dolores. My oldest friend. My anchor. She pulled up in her bright red Prius, a box of pastries in her arms and a scarf that looked like it had stories to tell. She walked in, looked around once, and whistled. Margaret, you're living like a mystery novel heroine. Only the part where she disappears and starts over. I smiled. We sat on the deck with tea and almond croissants. Dolores listened as I told her everything. The inheritance, the silence, the villa, the garden, the conversations. She didn't interrupt. Just nodded and chewed, eyes soft and focused. When I finished, she leaned back and crossed her legs. I always knew you'd do something like this, she said. I blinked. Like what? Stop waiting and start being. You just needed a push. I think I got shoved. She laughed. Then her tone shifted. And what now? I don't know yet. But I know it won't be small. We sat in comfortable quiet. 2 women who had spent decades giving pieces of themselves to others, now finally holding something for themselves. That afternoon I received another visitor. Unexpected. Ben. My grandson. He stepped out of Greg's SUV slowly, holding a small backpack. Greg stayed in the car. Ben looked unsure, tall now, with the beginnings of a teenager's awkwardness. I walked out to meet him. Hi, Grandma. Hi, sweetheart. I wanted to see your new house. Come on in. He looked around in silence, taking in the high ceilings, the light, the shelves of books. This place is way cooler than Mom said. I chuckled. She say that? Not exactly. But she looked nervous when I asked to come. Did she send you? No, he said too quickly. Then, well, not really. I asked. She said it might be good. We sat on the deck. I poured lemonade. He looked at the garden beds being built and asked what I was planting. Herbs. Vegetables. Maybe some berries. Can I help? Of course. And just like that, we were back in something familiar. He talked more than I expected. Told me about school, his best friend moving away, a science project he'd messed up, and how he felt like everyone's busy all the time. I get that, I said. He nodded. You don't seem busy. I'm just not in a hurry anymore. Is that because you're old? I laughed out loud. Partly. But mostly because I've finally stopped running after people who don't want to be caught. He didn't fully understand, but he understood enough. That night, I wrote again in my journal. My grandson sees me more clearly than his parents do. I wonder how long that will last. I hope forever. The following week, I received a letter in the mail. An actual letter. Handwritten. It was from Lily. She'd been journaling too. 3 pages of memories. Childhood things I'd forgotten. Things she hadn't. She admitted to forgetting my birthday. Not just forgetting but avoiding it. Because it made me feel guilty, she wrote. And I didn't know how to handle that. She wrote about feeling overwhelmed becoming a mother. Watching me care for everyone and assuming I didn't need care myself. I'm sorry I turned your love into expectation, she wrote. And I'm sorry it took this long for me to see what you were carrying. At the end, she didn't ask for anything. Just signed it with love always. Lily. I sat with that letter for an hour. Not reading. Just holding it. Not every apology needs a response. Sometimes it just needs to be felt. The next day, I opened the doors to the guest room. Fresh sheets. Flowers on the nightstand. Just in case. Not because I was ready to go back. But because I was ready to let people earn their place again. That weekend I hosted my first dinner party. Dolores, her niece, my neighbor from down the hill, and 2 people I met at the library. 5 chairs around the table. Soft music, garden salads, and a peach cobbler I hadn't made in years. No one interrupted me. No one rolled their eyes when I talked about books or plants or the time I hiked with Uncle Walter through redwood trails. No one asked for anything. They just listened. Laughed. Stayed. And I realized I hadn't felt lonely in weeks. It happened on a Thursday. I was trimming lavender near the garden beds when Clara called. There's an offer on your old house, she said. Full price. No contingencies. Cash. I stared at the clippers in my hand. That house where I raised Lily, where I baked cakes that no one ate, where birthdays were forgotten and phone calls always ended with "I'll call you back," was finally being let go. I accept, I said. Not just the offer. The closure. Later that afternoon, I visited the senior center to see the reading room they'd renovated with the fund. New chairs, framed photos, shelves filled with large print novels and puzzles. A woman with white braids tapped me on the shoulder. You did this. I nodded. Then you're not just kind, she said. You're seen. Seen. The word stayed with me all evening. That weekend I booked my first real vacation in years. 3 weeks in Italy. Florence, Rome, a little village by the sea. Just me and my notebook. No group tours. No itinerary. I wasn't running away. I was expanding. The night before my flight, Lily called. She didn't ask for anything. She just talked. About Ben's piano recital. About Greg's job stress. About herself. And then near the end she asked quietly, "Can I come visit when you get back?" This time the answer came easy. Yes. She paused. No conditions? Just one. What? You see me. Not just who I've been to you, but who I am now. I will, she said. And I believed her. Not because she said it well, but because she didn't try to defend the past. She just accepted the moment. I left early the next morning. Dolores drove me to the airport. We talked about everything but goodbyes. As we hugged near the terminal, she whispered, "I'm proud of you." And for once I believed it. Because I was proud of me too. Italy was more than I expected. Olive groves, warm bread, long walks through narrow streets with no one calling my name. No one needing anything from me. I journaled every day. Sketches. Thoughts. Plans. Not regrets. Not once. By the second week, I stopped checking my phone every morning. Not because I was ignoring anyone, but because I no longer needed permission to be happy. When I came home, the villa was waiting. The garden had bloomed while I was gone. Tomatoes. Basil. Lavender everywhere. Ben had left a note taped to the gate. "Grandma, I watered everything. P.S. I got an A in science." I smiled. He was watching. Learning. Lily visited the next weekend. Just her. No Greg. No tension. She brought old photos and asked real questions. We walked the property together. She helped harvest herbs. She even cried once, quietly, when she didn't think I was looking. I didn't interrupt. Sometimes healing doesn't need words. Just presence. That evening, as we sat on the deck with tea, she said, "You don't seem angry anymore." "I was never angry," I replied. "Then what?" "I was tired of being invisible." She nodded slowly. "I get that." She looked out at the ocean, then back at me. "You're not invisible here." "No," I said. "I'm finally home." A week later, I finalized the next phase of the fund. This time, scholarships for older women starting over. Not big, flashy awards. Just enough to remind someone they're still allowed to dream. One of the applications caught my eye. A 62-year-old woman, widowed, wanted to study landscape design. I smiled, approved it on the spot. That evening, I went through my keepsake box. One envelope held photos from my old house. I picked out one, a birthday party from decades ago. No one else in the frame. Just me holding a slice of cake, smiling like it was enough. And for a while it had been. But now I had more than a slice. I had a full table. A second chapter. A name on the deed. My own piece. The phone rang once. Lily again. She was inviting me to her place next month. She said Ben wanted to cook for me. I think he's trying to make your lemon chicken. I laughed. He better not burn it. And just before she hung up, she said it. Words I hadn't heard in years, not like this. Love you, Mom. For real. Not out of habit. Love you too, I said. For real. Later that night, I stood by the window. Outside, my garden was glowing in the moonlight. And I whispered something just to myself. Margaret Whitman. Seen. Free. Still growing. And I meant every word.